Well, Andrew, Tim, welcome to Blockdaemon's webinar series. Thank you both for joining us. Very excited to have you. I will obviously let you guys introduce yourself, but really today we're here to deep dive into the story protocol, its origins, its vision, the progress, the roadmap. I would start by saying that on Wednesday, about 2 days ago, day of recording at least, there was a really exciting announcement and milestone for the protocol where you guys launched your testnet and it was live. Over 100 ecosystem partners, close to 300K, 300,000 followers on Twitter, amazing momentum for the story protocol. I think, a reflection of the excitement that exists around the project. And I guess we're like super lucky to have you, Tim, join us. And we want to deep dive into what makes story unique, interesting, differentiated. And before I do so and ask you a bunch of questions, maybe I can pass it on to you, Tim, and let you introduce yourself. How did you come to story? What do you do as story? And if you can give us a two-liner on story, that'd be amazing. And then I'll pass it on to Andrew for the same.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gaetan, and thank you very much, Blockdaemon, for the invitation. So my name is Tim. I currently serve as DevRel and also leading the validation effort in Story. So a bit background on myself. So how I actually know Story and then joined in Story. So before Story, I was working as head of DevRel at a crypto AI company called Block.io. But interestingly, 3 years ago, when I pursued my master thesis was on IPM blockchain. So where I did a series of research on how we could use blockchain to revamp current intellectual property system in governments. So that's how I actually noticed about Story when they raised second round last year, and I certainly got more excited and dived a lot deeper into the whole stuff, and then started building project and building application on top of Story. And then I found a chance to join in Story directly to work with the team to provide my vision alongside with the team's vision towards the whole general audience. So that's how I actually joined in. So very excited to be here to share my vision and also our team's vision. So back to the point. Also, I want to introduce our project Story. So we originally called Story Protocol. So we now renamed to Story. So Story is a purposely built layer one, specifically serving the intellectual property, trying to solve the existing problem in real world, how intellectual lack of transparency, lack of traceability on the intellectual property. Also adding the financial layer, the execution layer on the intellectual property to improve the liquidity. Yeah, thank you very much, Gaetan.
Thank you. Thanks for this introduction. I'll pass it on to Andrew. Andrew, can you tell us what you do at Blockdaemon and how Blockdaemon is supporting Story today?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the VP of Engineering at Blockdaemon. I've been in the kind of blockchain space since like 2013 in various capacities. Ran a lot of my own infra. Ran some nodes, did a lot of different things. 2018, I joined Blockdaemon as one of the kind of early engineers. I think we were quite a small startup. Back then, I would have built out a lot of the early platform that we used to, onboard different protocols, primarily staking infrastructure. From there, kind of build up that team. We call them the node operations team, who mostly manage onboard protocols, support dev teams, get involved in the communities. Built that team up and then kind of transitioned into an innovation role, worked on a bunch of different projects, and then recently this year taken on the VP of engineering role. As Blockdaemon is an infrastructure provider, we do support quite a lot of protocols. And one of the things that we do with Story is, we've been kind of like an early validator, and we've helped support, with getting infrastructure up and running. And then we use our suite of tools that we've developed over the years, like monitoring and alerting and all the various automation tools that help us manage and support the blockchain infrastructure, specifically for the Story protocol.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, we were one of the infrastructure partner that launched on testnet recently, on Wednesday, actually. Cool. So yeah, deep diving into you mentioned briefly a bit of the vision around why story was built, what is the, becoming the world's IP sort of protocol or infrastructure, right? And tokenization of intellectual property. Maybe could you tell us a bit more about what is the pain points that you're solving for? Like, why is it the current system not good enough? And maybe like how is story planning to address that, and by what kind of mechanism? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I'll split this question into two phases. So first of all, I will introduce what happened with traditional world on intellectual property, and then I roll into the why we decided to build L1, because L1 wasn't the intention of how we started. Actually, transitioned over the time with technical difficulties. So as we know that intellectual property is an very abstract term in real world, no matter how you vision it, because so in law, in legal, how we define a IP or define the rights of ownership of the IP is actually through stack of contract. But that stack of contract is untraceable. It's very ambiguous and also abstract. So what we found out, and then doing my research and our team's vision, is that what if we use that NFT to represent the right? So then we actually make the abstract object remapping on chain to make it more consolidated and concrete. So you can actually have the sense of holding something. So using NFT to represent the right actually supports a lot of further innovation on top of that, because it's become a new type of asset distribution mechanism. So where you're able to tokenize this right, also using that right as a collateral or increase the liquidity of the rights. So this leads to the second issue of traditional intellectual property system, where why intellectual property is lacking of liquidity is because of the complexity of signing the contract. Where when your ownership is transferred, you need to sign a lot of different kind of contract, and then all your subsequent rights will also require to sign contract. That whole process is taking a lot longer than we expected within the lower kind of process. So I think with blockchain, first of all, the nature of blockchain is trustless, and then transparency and also traceability. This significantly help us to reduce the middleman wasting time in this scenario, where we can directly sign a transaction and then we transfer the rights. So the second part is why we decided to build layer one. So originally, when we started the whole project, we wanted to build a protocol. So we want to build this story protocol as our original name, where we designed this whole layer of smart contract, allowing people to register IP using different modules to compose the IP with licensing, with loyalty, with dispute, and then also further up with more innovation from the user within our ecosystem. But then we found out if there are so many chains around, we need to maintain all those smart contract on different chains. It's unlike layer 0. So we actually need to have this cross-chain API or cross-chain messaging system that allowing creators to register IP but also distribute it to all different chains. That will be a massive engineering work. So we move on to layer 2. So with layer 2, we found out the relationship between IP graph is very hectic. So you can only penetrate into fourth layer of the IP graph. So what IP graph is actually you have the parent IP, and then you can remix on top of that parent IP, and then it creates the ancestor. So we can only penetrate to the fourth layer of ancestor, which is not ideal for creators, because creator might want to remix more and more IP, but then we can't hold it within a single block of gas limits. So that's why we moved to layer 1, where we designed our own pre-compiler to reduce the gas fee, and also providing a better service for the artist, for the creator to register their IP. Yeah, so that's the whole reason why we built our own layer 1.
Awesome. So yeah, providing more transparency, immutability, disintermediation, helping intellectual property being, I guess, sort of more traceable and more transferable and in a transparent way, right? Democratizing this access to anybody. That's super interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe turning to Andrew, thinking about that vision and that story as a sort of unique protocol in that sense. Like when it comes to Blockdaemon supporting 50 plus different protocols, How does that fit into Blockdaemon? Like, what is Blockdaemon putting in place to be able to be a really good partner to these kinds of protocols?
Yeah, it's a fascinating vision, right? And it's one of the promises of blockchain technology. I've been around the space for about a decade, and we had these ideas a long time ago that things would be on chain, and we would tokenize the world, and we would use contracts for off chain systems that might have been efficient. So the promise of blockchain and the technology and the story's vision definitely aligns with what we've been thinking internally and predicting for quite some time. And the other interesting narrative that Blockdaemon has been kind of leaning into, and it's increasing the more and more we go, is the kind of application specific chain where there's like a hub of a particular use case that is where you can easily deploy a certain idea and have people kind of congregate around that chain, right? I think you touched on a couple of other interesting things about spreading across all of the chains or having something on a unique chain. And I think the tooling has got to a point where there's interoperability, and there's different bridging technologies that have advanced. So all of those things put together, that's the platform that Blockdaemon have been building towards. We do expect quite a lot of application specific chains and tooling, and we also see that there's similarities in the tech stacks, and they're much more mature. So Blockdaemon has been building out a platform, a middleware, technology, monitoring, alerting, and leaning into these ecosystems where we see commonality and a lot of growth to basically support the builders who are actually trying to tokenize the world, bring things on chain, and make assets and creative assets and IP, and it's not just tokens anymore. It's a whole plethora of different use cases that we're starting to see evolve. So our infrastructure strategy and our we're taking initiative to try and help these application specific builders deploy the best systems, right? And then when you look at a lot of the customers that we have, they vary across all these different ecosystems, and we feel that there's going to be a world where all of these things are kind of mixed together, and we're going to have a very interesting future where the technology and the integrity and the performance that blockchain offers really kind of opens up a whole lot of new use cases that we dreamed about for the last decade. So yeah, it's really exciting to kind of be part of this and also be building the infrastructure components that can power this new future.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that, Andrew. Tim, going back to you and maybe thinking about the goals that are laid out for Story as an entity and as a force for tokenization of IP. There's been a lot of I think a lot of endeavors in Web3 to try to abstract away the complexity of what blockchain is, what distributed systems rely on, and how they're structured. And so I think your co-founder and CEO was talking a lot in a few public speaking interventions, talking about how the team is really working towards simplifying this complexity, abstracting away that complexity. So I'm kind of curious, when we think about how Story is being built under the hood, and the incentives that needs to really align between creators and the project, how are you guys thinking about that? Like, how is Story being built to really align these incentives between creators and the community building on Story, like to make sure that this relationship, this dynamic between Story, the project, the builders, the creator, is really symbiotic, and that it's a win-win relationship. Would love you to maybe explain a bit more to the audience how you guys think about that.
Of course, I think there are three parts I would express how we support the simplicity. So the first one is actually how we building a better developer onboarding experience for the builders. So we often know that how you construct your documentation, how you express your technical of the chain, and also how you express the protocol level. It's very important because that's how your builders, the first impression of your builder comes into build is trying to understand what's going on, what tooling we provide for the builders to do. For example, at the moment, we provide three types of tooling. The first one is direct integration with smart contract. So that's the most flexible way of building on top of our ecosystem. And then we have wrapped up SDKs. both TypeScript and Python SDKs, allowing developers to actually choose their favorite stack rather than just limiting them to what it is within the ecosystem where we expect everyone to use TypeScript, right? And then the second part is how we communicate with the creators. So slightly different compared with our team to other layer one team is that we actually split out into three engineering teams: the layer one, the protocol, and also application. So what the main focus of application team is, one is building applications supporting our ecosystem, but the other mission for them is building something called the hub. So the hub is a IP registration platform that allows creators to actually directly register their creative work on top of our layer one. So what it does is actually simplify the whole process. So we are building this seamless or frictionless process for artists, for creators to actually understand why it's so important for them to register their IP on our chain. It's helping them to understand the potential after registering IP on our chain. For example, they can select their legal terms, and then they are able to claim the royalty. I think first thing we want to do is actually lower down the barrier of their entrance, and then we can work with, for example, on-ramp and off-ramp vendors to help them how we can transfer the on-chain assets to off-chain. So, but first, the most important step is how to get them on board, and then how to get them easily on board. So I believe one thing great about our team is that everyone is very experienced. Everyone's been in this space for a long time, and everyone understands the fact that how difficult it is to, for example, introducing wallet to my parents. Then I believe it's gonna be hard, right? You're gonna introduce your seed phrase and then tell them to write down the seed phrase, and then also teach them how to use exchange. So we clearly understand the pain point there. So we are actively working with for example, dynamic, for example, social login wallets, and also smart contract wallet vendors to provide a better experience for creators who doesn't know Web3, or what we want to provide is a very Web2 like experience for them to just register their asset, and then they can claim their royalty, and then selling their license. So they don't need to care what's behind the scene. We want to one day eliminate the word usage of the word Web3 or blockchain. We just say on our application, you just register your IP, and then you claim your royalty, and then you just sell your license, and then everything just come into your account. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I guess, like building on that and talking about abstracting away complexity, making it easier to onboard developers, and also looking into the hood, like what's happening to make that happen, to fulfill that goal. Turning to you, Andrew, like what is currently Blockdaemon developing to as a platform, but also as services to try to abstract away the complexity of interacting with blockchain and making it secure, reliable, all these things that are important for developers, but also large institutions. Yeah, could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, the core of Blockdaemon in its early days was just infrastructure, right? It was deploy the infrastructure, allow developers to, access endpoints and to get up and running, right? And over the years, we've kind of seen the way different people interact with us, from exchanges to custodians to developers to foundations and to the protocols themselves, right? And once we've kind of gone through that journey, like Timothy said, right, there's a lot of people who have a lot of experience, and we've seen the friction and the challenges for the builders that we've had for the last few years. But we're kind of thinking more about the future builders, right? The future users of these chains, the future, people who want to interact on the protocol. So, we're very much taking a platform approach that kind of tries to, summarize or to kind of combine all of these different services together. So, we offer things like, RPC endpoints, and we make sure they're globally scalable with low latency. We offer tooling and SDKs around that. And we also offer, support and can help people on board to those chains, right? At the kind of infrastructure layer, it's it's our bread and butter. It's what we've been doing for 6 years plus. So there's quite a lot of tooling and the monitoring, the uptimes, the alerts, the all of the things that you would expect from an institutional node operator or validator operator. But we also have a couple of other products within our, platform approach, right? So we have, MPC technology. So if people need to build out advanced wallets, or they need to, custody certain assets, or they need to, potentially have IP in this example that could be worth, millions of dollars, right? They need to secure that. It's not just, a passphrase written down on a piece of paper somewhere, right? So there's a whole suite of tooling that we can bring to the different builders who want to interact with, the various ecosystems. And then obviously, with this platform mindset that we have, we're able to offer the clients who come into to Blockdaemon, give them the services they want, and they can compose them in the way that they need, to build both for their customers or for, a new application in the space. And they can basically pick and choose, and, build the best thing that they need for the problem they're trying to solve.
Right. I think, yeah, exactly. And I think scalability and security are really important to Blockdaemon as an institutional grade provider, but also to the story team, right, and your projects. And that kind of leads me naturally to the next question and section of our interview around the ecosystem, because there's a lot of projects building and relying on story as a protocol, and also as a project to tokenize this IP that is really relevant for each and every use cases of your ecosystem partners. So maybe Tim, could you tell us more about the ecosystem that has been built? As I mentioned, there's over 100 projects currently that launch with you. Maybe a few that you might be mentioning that you're excited about, and that rely on this really core security, reliability, scalability of the protocol, and that Blockdaemon also contributes to. Would love to hear you about your thoughts on how the ecosystem is coming along, what the value they see in story.
Yeah, of course, we strongly value the importance of ecosystem. So our thesis has always been ecosystem first. So supporting the ecosystem help us to build a better network, also help us to build a stronger team up cases for the audience. So as you come to our ecosystem page, we actually split out our ecosystem partner into several categories like DeFi, AI, and AIGC, and then creator tools, and then also infrastructure partners. We see everyone listed as a same A-like importance. So let's go from the DeFi first. I think DeFi is very important as the early stage in the blockchain ecosystem, especially a new chain. What it brings in is the entrance of assets liquidity. So only if you have a very mature DeFi infrastructure, allowing people to swap token, transfer token, like delegate token, or lending the token, you are able to unlock the further usage. For example, how we transfer IP, selling IP, and then also use IP as a collateral to lend out money. So if you don't have a good DeFi infrastructure, it is very hard for people to use, because liquidity is very important. TVL is very important. How assets flow within the chain is important for all the users, right? That's how one of the most important part of the blockchain is the currency that flows on chain. How that part the composability of the token. So and then we have AI and AIGC. As we know that one of our important touch point of the thesis is the intellectual property within AI generation, the AI era. So how can we identify the ownership after using the model to generate something, and how do we vision the financial usage after generating those assets? How are we selling these to other users, or how are we allowing other people to remix on top of existing work? So we actually built a good relationship with a lot of AI projects. For example, what I'm gonna mention is Mahojing. So they are one of the earliest AI projects on our ecosystem, using prompt-based model as part of the IP assets. So where you are able to generate image directly through other people's prompt, but actually someone may had a long time investigating or researching how to make this prompt good. Then you gotta respect on their creation. And then we can actually lead to a further discussion of what happened to the assets after generated by the AI model. It can actually roll back to different other models as a part of our training data. So then we can see we create a positive cycle here, that everything that generated on this application can be used by other models, by other applications, because the asset is on our chain. So lastly is the traditional creator tools such as music creator tools, or fiction creator tools or image creator tools that allowing more and more general people or normal audience to participate our ecosystem, to be a creator, to actually start utilizing our blockchain. So one important one interesting story I talked to when I was in Japan talking to the creator there is that we we realized that in Japan the vendors like creator there can only sell their comic or their manga to the Japanese people. So I think what blockchain does make ability is actually create this supply and demand for the global. So you as a Japanese or you as any type of nation, you are able to connect to other countries, connect to the world just through this blockchain because everyone using the same infrastructure. So you don't need to worry how do I actually promote my work to other people. Yeah, I think that's one of the beauty I see how blockchain is also very important for intellectual property is that the globalness and how we bridge different people together through that one single blockchain.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for that. That really helps. And Andrew, maybe, bouncing off this idea of composability in the DeFi space, and moving these assets on chain, when it comes to IP, but also more generally, the space, what are your thoughts in terms of how Blockdaemon can navigate that and the contributions of an infra partner to the ecosystem that Tim just laid out?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, right? Because Blockdaemon support quite a lot of different protocols and a lot of different ecosystems. So at our core, in order to be able to support the industry and the various innovations, we've had to take like a kind of an aggregator composable approach from the very, very start, right? So early on, in order to support something like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're completely different. But to our developers and to our customers, we need to make them look the same, within our tech stack to be able to deploy them. So we've taken a very much modular approach from the very, very start, just with our own tooling, right? So we have some APIs that abstract away the differences between chains. So a new entrant to the space, like a very traditional Web2 development shop, can easily integrate with a lot of different chains using one single API, right? So these philosophies have been core to our early business and are one of the reasons we were able to accelerate the adoption of a lot of the protocols that we support. Now, when we kind of take that lens and we apply it to various different other innovations in the space, like DeFi or data or RPC infrastructure, we're able to take that same philosophy and basically build integrations and systems that allow all these blockchains to essentially communicate or to allow users to integrate with them all over the place. So we do have quite a few initiatives that are currently running where we're looking at interoperability and bridging and swapping and building APIs and tooling around that. So an integrator, whether it be a developer, an institution, an exchange, or any other platform, can get access to all of these various different liquidity sources or chains through kind of like simple integrations, right? And that has been the core of our philosophy from the very, very start. In order for the ecosystem to really be seen at a global level, we kind of need this tooling and this mindset, right? If you're just an island and there's no bridges to other islands, or if there's no other way to move from that ecosystem to the other, it can be quite difficult for that particular protocol to gain traction, right? Or it could be a fantastic ecosystem, but if all the liquidity is just in one place, it's going to be very hard for to get mindshare and to actually have people fully adopt it, right? And people will be hesitant to put all their eggs in one basket, right? They kind of want that composability. They kind of want that optionality to be able to kind of move around. And I think Timothy said it quite well, that having that kind of core ability for people to bring liquidity or to move liquidity or to kind of get up and running in an ecosystem, it only comes through composability. It only comes through tooling that enables that. So that's what we've been kind of thinking from the very, very start as Blockdaemon. And I think it's definitely how the ecosystem is starting to evolve, and we see this gaining at a huge rate, and the tooling has got so much better over the last 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I want to be mindful of the time, and thank you again, Timothy, for having spent the time with us. I think I'll jump to the last section, which really is about looking forward, right? What's ahead for Story, and I think maybe an anchoring point for people watching that webinar is talking about some of the investors that you've had, actually, where it started. Like investors like the screenwriter of The Dark Knight, a really massive movie, right, that has tremendous IP tied to it. Paris Hilton Media, the company of this obviously very famous star, a superstar. And there's also like a lot of more traditional VCs, but I thought it was very interesting to point out these investors, because in terms of the projects and what's ahead of what you guys have already achieved and now what remains to be achieved, could you tell us a bit more about how you intend to collaborate and make these two worlds collaborate, the Web 2 world of movies and media and the world of Web 3 that you're building right now, which is really around all the properties and projects that we've discussed so far. Tim, if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, of course. I think intellectual property blockchain is not we are not in the very earliest initializer. So it's actually back in days it's already there. And also so I'm Chinese, so there's a lot of copyright chain in China that has been running for a long time and then has been utilized by a lot of companies. So from my perspective and from my understanding with the team is that we need to onboard more Web2 creators. So so we recently saw the research on how many active users on blockchain. It's around 5% of the population. So we should include the rest of 95% of the population on chain in order to have a bigger use case, also a bigger audience. And then intellectual property, copyright, like iconic characters are so easily to understand. Like, for example, Pokemon, for example, Dark Knight, the screenwriter of Dark Knight actually invested in us. And then also Hype, one of the largest K-pop group owner, has also invested in us. So what it shows is that we are actively collaborating with all the Web2 entertainment companies to figure out how we can onboard them first, and then through their reputation, through their exposure, we can onboard more users towards our platform. So if we are able to, for example, onboard a Blackpink song onto our blockchain, it will be massive. Like everyone will know because they are one of the most successful K-pop girls group in this world. I think it's really about who we should onboard to create the biggest leverage and then biggest exposure rate towards the general audience rather than Web3 audience, because Web3 audience will know about us through the media, through all the different platforms, and then through Twitter. It's really about bringing the next I don't like to say bring the next billion user, but it's actually about how we can help the Web2 creators to figure out a better monetization onto their work. Because again, as I mentioned in our ecosystem, it's about bridging their work towards the global market rather than just stuck in their own region. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tim. I guess turning to you, Andrew, and talking about this relationship between Web 2 and Web 3. Obviously, I know that Blockdaemon works with a lot of Web 2 traditional companies, like from Microsoft to other large, more financially minded and invested traditional companies. What do you see on your side in this relationship between Web 2 and Web 3, and how is Blockdaemon plugging itself and enabling that bridge?
Yeah, one of the most obvious things is that if the tooling is difficult, it's going to be harder for a traditional company to kind of figure it out, right? So I think one of the important things is that there needs to be some sort of standards within the industry, or like common tooling that allows these more traditional companies to integrate, right? So if every blockchain that someone wants to support, if they're blockchain curious, right, and they want to come into the space, and every blockchain is completely different, there's too many choices, right? It's really difficult for them to kind of say, well, I could do this Ethereum thing, or I could go over to this Cosmos thing, or I could go over to this Bitcoin, but now I've got to develop all this my engineers are going to have to learn a whole load of new stuff, and it's going to be really challenging, and how am I going to support it, right? So one of the things that I see that can help that is having common standards, common tooling, common ecosystems that kind of like make it much easier for the integrators, right? Because ultimately, if we do want to scale blockchain to hundreds of millions of users, right, and developers, we're going to need that sort of standards and tooling that basically enables them to get up and running really quickly, right? So some of the technologies that are being used, again, specifically in Story Protocol, for instance, like the EVM has been a huge mindshare, right? A lot of engineers, a lot of developers have quickly picked that up, right? There's very, very good tooling that has enabled that, right? And I think having that sort of approach from an industry, it makes it much easier for new entrants to come into the space. There's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of SDKs, there's a lot of providers who can offer services, and it makes it much easier, right? So from Blockdaemon's perspective, it's really important for us to kind of help and support those ecosystems, offer scalable APIs, offer good documentation, allow it to be easily integrated, and these Web 2 providers are like, they're actually, a lot of them are ready. They just don't know they're ready. They're curious. They have the idea. I think the market and the infrastructure has kind of proven itself, mostly with the crypto use cases, but now we're starting to see a lot of them, doing interesting things. Sony, for instance, are going to launch an L2 blockchain on a very good ecosystem, Optimism. Like, that's a big statement of intent from a large traditional company, and they're taking a bet on building on chain and using that to power elements of their business going forward. So I definitely think the train has left the station, and providers like Blockdaemon are definitely there to support and build. That's why we're really interested in Story Protocol. We like the vision, we like the tooling. It fits into our stack right well, and it fits into our mental model for what we think the future is going to look like as we see more assets go on chain, and all these really interesting use cases actually start to gain traction.
Love it. Thank you so much, Andrew. I guess last question for both of you. Where can we contact you? Where can we find you? Any conference or on social media or anywhere else where we can get in touch if we're interested? Tim, I'll start with you and then pass it on to Andrew.
So my handle for all media platform is actually Tim. So 3tim.eth is my unique identifier. So yeah, that's my ENS as well. So you can find me on Twitter, or Discord, or Telegram. So I'm mostly living on Twitter and Discord to support everyone, whether you're a developer or validator. So and then so I will be flying to Bangkok tonight. So we will be having a Story Academy event on Monday, the 11th, in Bangkok. So do visit us and drop us in to talk to us about your vision, and then how we can work together, and also to learn more about Story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andrew, some questions for you.
Yeah, been in the crypto space for quite some time. Also Discord, Twitter, Telegram. The handle is Blockzilla Tech. And you can also find me, if you're more traditional, on LinkedIn at Andrew Howell.
Awesome. And for Blockdaemon, blockdaemon.com, that's how you can find us on our website. Exciting, future ahead. Thank you so much both for joining. And yeah, I hope to talk to you guys very soon.